In a world that urges us to react, to defend, that's the danger of speaking when you're emotional. You give up control. You give up your power. A wise person once told me, you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. That stuck with me. Just because someone is pushing your buttons doesn't mean you have to respond. Just because they're That moment of silence, that pause before you speak, can be the difference between being known as reliable or being known as someone who doesn't follow through. I've seen the same mistake happen in personal relationships. People make promises in the heat of emotion. I'll always be there for you. I'll never let you down. I'll take care of it. And they mean it in the moment. But life happens. Challenges arise. The reality of those promises sets in, and suddenly keeping their word becomes difficult. And nothing damages trust faster than broken promises. It's not that people set out to deceive. It's that they didn't think before they spoke. They let their emotions do the talking instead of their judgment. And that's why silence before making a promise is so powerful. It gives you time to align your words with your actions. It prevents you from speaking out of pressure, out of excitement, or out of a need to impress. It allows you to make commitments that you can actually keep. A friend of mine once shared a story about a businessman he deeply respected. This man was known for his integrity. When he made a commitment, everyone knew it was solid. His secret? He never answered big decisions on the spot. No matter how tempting an opportunity was, no matter how urgent a request seemed, he always took a pause. Let me think about it, he'd say. Not out of hesitation, but out of respect. For his own time, for his resources, and for the people relying on his word. And because he took that time, when he did commit, his word carried weight. People trusted him because they knew he didn't make promises lightly. That's the power of measured speech. That's the strength of silence before commitment. I once heard a powerful saying, under-promise and over-deliver. That's a principle worth living by. Instead of saying yes to everything, instead of making promises just to please others, commit only when you're certain you can follow through, and then exceed expectations. People will respect you more for being thoughtful in your commitments than for making big promises you can't keep. And let's talk about another side of this. When people pressure you to commit. Have you ever been in a situation where someone's waiting for an immediate answer? So can I count on you? Will you take this project? Are you in? And they're expecting a quick yes because they want certainty. They want you to relieve them of their own uncertainty. But here's the truth. Just because someone is in a hurry doesn't mean you have to be. One of the best things you can train yourself to say is, let me think about it. Give me a little time to consider. I need to check my schedule before I commit. Those words protect your integrity. They give you space to make a decision that serves you rather than one that traps you. And if someone doesn't respect that, if they push harder, if they say, come on, I need an answer now, that's all the more reason to pause. Because any commitment worth making is worth thinking about. The people who truly value your time and your word will respect your need to consider before you commit. So here's what I want you to take away. Your word is one of the most valuable things you own. Guard it, protect it. Don't give it away too easily, because a promise made too quickly can turn into a burden, a regret, or worse, a broken commitment that damages trust. The next time someone asks for a commitment, take a moment. Stay silent. Let yourself think. And when you do speak, make sure your words are ones you can stand behind, because nothing is more powerful than a promise kept. There's a difference between speaking and speaking with purpose. Most people don't recognize that difference. They feel the need to respond immediately, to fill every silence with words, to have an answer for everything. But what they don't realize is that every time they speak without thinking, they weaken the power of their words. Because words that aren't chosen carefully don't carry weight. They just create noise. Think about the last time you were in a conversation where someone was just talking to talk. Maybe they were rambling, maybe they were repeating themselves, maybe they were speaking just to fill the air. Did their words hold any impact? Probably not. That's because words spoken without intention don't leave an impression. Now think about someone who speaks with purpose. Someone who doesn't rush to respond, but instead takes a moment to think. When they do speak, their words have weight. People listen, they pay attention, because they know that when this person speaks, it matters. That's the power of silence before responding. There's something you gotta understand. Just because someone is expecting an immediate response from you doesn't mean you have to give one. In fact, some of the biggest mistakes people make come from answering too quickly, reacting instead of responding, speaking before they've gathered their thoughts, saying something they later regret. Have you ever been in a disagreement where you said something in the heat of the moment that you wished you could take back? Where emotions ran high, and before you even had a chance to think, words flew out of your mouth. And then, as soon as you said them, you realized you made the situation worse. That's what happens when you don't allow silence to guide your response. I once knew a man who was incredibly successful in business. People admired him for his wisdom, for his ability to handle difficult conversations with ease. But the most remarkable thing about him wasn't what he said. It was how long he took before he spoke. Whenever he was asked a question, he never answered right away. He would pause. Sometimes for 5 seconds, sometimes for 10, sometimes even longer. At first, people found it a little uncomfortable. They weren't used to silence, but as time went on, they began to appreciate it. Because when he finally spoke, his words were always precise, thoughtful, and impactful. He didn't waste words. And because of that, people valued every single one he said. That's a skill worth mastering. Instead of rushing to speak, take a moment. Let the silence work for you. Because in that pause, you're doing something powerful. You're giving yourself the space to think. You're allowing yourself to process. You're ensuring that when you do respond, you're responding with clarity, not just emotion. Silence before responding is especially important in tough situations. Imagine you're in a business meeting and someone challenges you. Maybe they disagree with your idea, maybe they criticize your approach, maybe they question your ability. What's the natural instinct? To defend yourself immediately, to prove them wrong, to respond as quickly as possible. But if you react too fast, what happens? You get defensive. You say something impulsive. You let emotion take over instead of reason. And most of the time, that only escalates the situation. Now imagine handling it differently. Instead of responding right away, you pause. You take a breath. You allow a moment of silence. And in that silence, you're not just thinking. You're also giving the other person time to reflect on what they just said. You're controlling the energy in the room. And when you do respond, you do it calmly, strategically, and with purpose. That kind of response carries much more weight than a knee-jerk reaction. This applies in personal relationships too. How many arguments could be avoided if people just took a moment before responding? How many conflicts escalate simply because one person spoke too soon? A lot of misunderstandings happen not because people mean to hurt each other, but because they respond without thinking. I once heard a great rule. When you're angry, count to 10 before you speak. And if you're really angry, count to 100. Why? Because that space between feeling and reacting is where wisdom has a chance to enter. That space is where you decide whether your response is going to build or destroy, whether it's going to bring understanding or create distance. A friend of mine shared a story about a heated argument he had with his business partner. Emotions were high, words were sharp, and just as my friend was about to say something harsh, something that would have permanently damaged their relationship, he stopped. He didn't speak. He took a deep breath. He let the silence sit there. And in that moment, he realized what he was about to say wasn't necessary. It wasn't going to help. So he chose different words, words that de-escalated instead of inflamed. And that one moment of silence saved a partnership that could have easily been destroyed. That's the power of silence before responding. It gives you time to make sure your words serve you, not work against you. It allows you to shift from reacting emotionally to responding intelligently. And it's not just about avoiding conflict. It's about making your words more meaningful. Because when you're selective with your speech, people pay more attention. And every time, it just made things worse. Then one day he decided to try something Nothing is more powerful than a person who refuses to be shaken.